The SnakeByte does not bite. It's an $80 wired Xbox and Windows controller. Hiding under the faceplate are magnetic Hall effect thumbstick modules that are highly unlikely to develop stick drift, but if you get shafted and developed drift in the thumbstick shafts, you do have 5 years of warranty coverage, which is virtually unheard of for controllers. As with most licensed Xbox controllers, you are going to get 1 month of Game Pass, as in you watching. Somebody's going to get flashed the placard. I am going to flash you in this video. Presentation is pleasurable, as this box is magnetized and has a cloth grab tab, which makes it very easy to open up. You'll notice a little block of foam for stability during shipping, as well as a thank you letter from Mark Kupper, the CTO, or Chief Technical Officer. CFO is Chief Financial Officer. CEO is the Chief Executive. Yeah, CTO, Chief Technical, big dog. These are his words. Let them soak into your gamer soul. Go ahead and slip a finger into the upper decker, get it out of the way, out of my face, and you are going to have a 10-foot braided USB-C cable. No dust covers, but you do have a Velcro tieback that will stay connected, and I really do like this little pumpkin spice black and orange color theme, which definitely goes with the colorway of the gamepad. If you don't already have an active subscription to Game Pass Ultimate, you do now. One of you does. Type that sucker in. Now, this does come in a white and black variant, and something that needs noted immediately is that this controller is already on sale, slashed from $80 down to $60, and the ratings, or review stars I should say, are not phenomenal. There's only 11 ratings, but they average out to 3 out of 5 stars. But I'm doing my review process, and I'm gonna Yelp the shit out of it. 3 out of 5 stars. It might not even get that, or this might be a premium recommendation, a flagship, top tier, entry-level wired Xbox controller, which there is a bajillion of. That segment of controllers is so oversaturated. That is the reason that Microsoft implemented that Xbox ban, which I get a lot of questions about that. Just to confirm right quick, every single controller you see on the wall, as well as all the ones in that drawer in my overflow, some of the ones in the closet right there, all the ones on the wall in the living room, all still work, as they are all either licensed Xbox controllers that have that little lime green stamp and sigil, or they start life as a stock Xbox controller that gets disassembled and customized from a company like AIM, Scuff, Battle Beaver, Cinch, Megamods, just to name a few. I actually haven't encountered a gamepad, converter, adapter that does not work in single player or multiplayer on the Xbox. So there's that. But linked in the description below is a video from a couple months back where I did a deep dive into that entire topic, looking over the article from Microsoft themselves from the Xbox blog, and then also explaining exactly what that ban pertains to, because there is a lot of confusion, even currently to this day, floating around my comment section and Reddit and whatnot. The great Xbox controller ban. Custom, premium, and pro controllers still work. Welcome aboard, Stallion or Stallionette. Over 200 gamepads tested, not letting off the throttle. Controller looking like a model. Reviews go down smooth. Pass me the bottle. I got paddles. Back to the lobby with a waddle. Gaming news, gear reviews, more controllers than you can use. A man of many faces, recording by the Smokin' Aces. I wasn't born the controller captain. It was you bucking Broncos that made it happen. Enough input delay. This video is slapping. Now, we of course are going to go in-depth part by part, component by component on this gamepad, but just a quick summary or overview of everything that this controller has. I did mention the magnetic Hall effect thumbstick modules, a 5-year warranty. This also has audio controls for the 3.5mm headphone jack. One of the best D-pads I have used in a long time, and definitely in this entry to mid-level price point. Face buttons tickle me the right way, as well as these trigger stops, which do cut out about 95% of the trigger pull, and also are in a really good place to activate and deactivate on the fly. And then you flip it around on backside and you have what's called the command slide, which indeed is a slider that lets you quickly select the input for each one of these rear buttons, which I have to say are quite ergonomically comfortable as they are sunk with the rear shell. I also do like this mechanism for binding the rear buttons. The perks or benefits of going with this command slide design is, one, you can immediately see what the buttons are bound to instead of having to pop open an application. Oh, this is what I had it bound to last. Secondly, there's no faster method of rebinding, not popping open an application, not holding down a combination of buttons on the fly. This is just instantaneous. The last one is completely subjective, but I actually think these kind of slides look kind of cool. And this isn't necessarily a new feature. Here's a pro controller from the Sega Genesis that has turbo functionality you can turn on and off, but there's also old school gamepads, third-party pro controllers that had toggles and switches for binding the rear buttons. For example, the Bionic Vulcan, which has its selector switches on the bottom. This gamepad has yet to have its day in court with a comprehensive review on the channel, but it is something else and will be talked talked about in a future video. As for cosmetics or appearance, with this white and black two-tone, it's giving off PS5 vibes or BMW i8 vibes. There's also a McLaren model that has this two-tone thing going on. It looks pretty good in my opinion. The orange does throw a little bit too much into the mix on top of the multicolored Xbox face buttons, which I do like that little traditional nod of the hat, that throwback to the original Xbox, but in combination with the orange and then the white and black, it's a little bit rambunctious and almost a little bit too much for me, but definitely a unique and somewhat cool looking gamepad. What I really do like is all the consumer regulatory information is in very small text, very inconspicuous, instead of having some big sticker covering the back. My biggest gripe back here is just the two different tones of black and the overall feel back here, which I know jumps into the build quality section, but I'm going to give cosmetics or appearance a 6 out of 10. A little too much going on for me. The SnakeByte is extremely comfortable. It's also very light at 220 grams. In fact, when I first picked it up, I thought that the rumble force motors had been removed, or I guess simply not installed in the first place. However, this does have pretty meaty vibration in the palms, and I have not done a teardown or disassembly yet, but from every game I've played, there is no vibration in the triggers, so I do not believe there are the impulse motors in the triggers for that precision vibration, but you definitely have the traditional rumble force motors in the palms, and they do feel good. But back onto comfort, this is a very light controller, so you won't have any excess wrist fatigue, and this is that typical Xbox One shell design, which is phenomenal. Yes, I said Xbox One. I know this is an Xbox Series controller, but they didn't really change much from generation to generation, and that's for a reason. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and this has got to be ergonomically one of the most comfortable controller designs. Now you combine that with two rear buttons that are sunk flush with the rear shell, so they don't cut into comfort negatively at all. You have a damn comfortable pro controller. As for perceived build quality, it is not bad despite the fact this is a light controller at 220 grams. I do not subscribe to the camp that a heavier controller gives it premium build quality. We all saw the PowerA Fusion 1 and 2 putting those lead sinkers, fishing weights in the palm grips, and the plastics used here do not feel cheap by any means, except for this black piece. The plastics change and do look a little bit more porous and cheap, and also, ooh, golly cheapers, listen to that. Yeah, that sounds real thin. So I don't think this will survive many, if any, hard drops onto a hard floor, but if it's just resting in your gamer palms as it should be, I don't think you'll have any issues, and neither does SnakeByte, as you have 5 years of warranty coverage, which is wacko. I was looking for evidence of a bad quality control reputation, and there simply isn't one. I wasn't yelling, I just had the caps locks on for some reason. But as you can see here, there's no videos, forums, or anything that leads down a rabbit hole of, man, there's a lot of broken gamepads from SnakeByte. But we will keep an ear peeled to the comment section of this review. There might be owners popping out of the woodworks with their experiences, their negative experiences, and we can learn from them and be like, whoa, hey, red flag. Maybe I'll stay away from that gamepad. As for the D-pad or direction buttons, I am quite a fan. There's nothing marketed or shown on the landing page of these being special mechanical switches or anything, but they are very tactile and clicky, despite the fact they most likely are still a membrane switch. This D-pad does have a little bit of side-to-side play or wiggle, but that is to be expected, as almost every controller does that. But these feel phenomenal, giving you a nice tactile click without being overly noisy. The only thing I don't like is if you happen to get your thumb kind of caught between two of them, there is a bit of a, let me change lenses, macro lens for the W, there's a bit of a jagged edge here. It's not very rounded. You can see there's a little bit of a cutoff or lip, so SnakeByte does try and make it comfortable for you, but it really isn't. If you're in there kind of doing roll-offs and whatnot, or trying to hit diagonals, it's not the most comfortable, but it does actuate the switches. Every time I was trying to hit a diagonal movement or switch from down here over to here, it would work. It just didn't feel the best on my fingers.
My fingers hurt.
Overall, I left satisfied. I'm going to give the D-pad 7.5 out of 10. As for the face or action buttons, cosmetically, it is a bit of a mixed sack. I do like that little throwback to the original coloration of the Xbox controller. However, they're very glossy, which I don't think looks great. If these were a matte white, I think it would match the faceplate, but these have a good feeling when you actuate them, despite the fact they are a membrane switch. So there's a rubber plunger mechanism under there, but it feels totally fine. They're serviceable, no issues here. And if you do have an issue, remember, 5-year warranty. I'm gonna give these face buttons a 6 out of 10. Where I think SnakeByte bit themselves in the tuchus and dumped some venom into that ass cheek is going to be with this center button suite, aka the accessory button suite. These down here for the 3.5mm headphone jack are not bad at all. They're easily accessible, well-sized, aren't obnoxiously loud, easy to hit. But the pause, options, and share button are so gosh darn tiny. Also really funky to be clustered up here where you could accidentally pause the game game, when you're trying to share a clip, my whole thumb can just engulf all of these buttons, and I have tiny little pin fingers. Also, it does need mention that this is the same Xbox jewel that has been used in PDP, PowerA, and Turtle Beach controllers. They're just the parts bin special. These things are dime a dozen. As for these thumbsticks, analog sticks, front niblets, diblets, you do have anti-friction rings, which is almost unheard of on Xbox controllers. Even some of the Pro controller variants do not have this feature where you glide along smooth plastic when you're at full lock on the outside of your thumbstick gates. These feel very nice. Also, the rubber silicone compound is quite grippy, and I think it'll also hold up in the long run because of how dense, how firm it is. There's not much give, and this also feels like durable rubber. You kind of know what thumbsticks are going to hold up over the years of punishment. The old school scuff design was not one of them. Corsair knew that and has replaced it since with a new design that's substantially better. We've come to the crucible where we separate the men from the boys, the shitty gamepads from the ones that are less shitty or at least have not subpar thumbstick modules. These modules snap back to a perfect resting value of 0.00002 every time I move them to and fro, vertical and horizontal axis, and then I stop like you wish I would do with talking. These are also freakishly responsive, more so than a lot of its competitors in both the potentiometer and Hall effect segment. There's also no weird minimum or maximum dead zone baked in, which is something we've encountered with thumbsticks in the past. Let's run that circularity test, shall we? I think it's going to be a little bit low, and much like golf, lower number better here, and this guy just beat our ass with a 7-iron and then headed back to the clubhouse for a cocktail. Freakishly accurate. As for the bumpers, they do have this soft satiny plastic, which feels really good on the fingertips, but doesn't really provide much grip, although you don't need much grip on the bumpers because you just rest your finger there. Actuating works with the meat of your finger or with the tip, and doesn't really require much more force over here where the swivel or hinge mechanism is as it does over here, so that's very nice. And there's no funkage with them. If you're used to an Xbox controller, this will be a direct conversion. I'm going to go ahead and give these bumpers an 8 out of 10. As for the triggers, they are using the same plastics right here and right here. However, on the top there are these dibbly dots, the stippling that you're going to have on a stock Xbox controller, which does feel very nice. I kind of do wish this continued onto the bumpers. It does where it's labeled RB and LB on these tiny little sections here, but why not extend those to the entire bumper? It would keep everything matching on the top, not only cosmetically, but also feeling on your fingertips. But it doesn't offend me much, and what I really do like is these trigger stops. They're easy to engage while you're in gameplay. You don't even really need to look at the controller. And when they are engaged, they cut out about 95% of your trigger pull. But then when you go back to your racing games, you can still modulate the old throttle and brake. Ooh, also, they do feel to have a bit more resistance than a stock controller. I don't know if this is a placebo effect or if I'm just imagining things. Oh yeah, it definitely feels like there's a little bit more resistance in there, about 10%. Small, but noticeable, so she said. I'm gonna give these triggers an 8 out of 10. Repeat, 8 out of 10. As for these rear buttons, a couple of things I do like and a couple of things I don't. We're gonna start with what I do like. Ergonomically, they are very comfortable, sunk with the rear shell where you wanna hold the palm grips. You've got these 2 oversized buttons. I'd like if there were 2 more, maybe they were cut into sections, or even just add 2 more down here where your ring fingers would be. That'd be phenomenal. I also do like the stippling. It feels good on your fingertips, and I do like the command slider to rebind. Earlier during the comfort section, I explained a couple of the reasons that I'm a fan of that mechanism. What I do not like is the plastics back here. I said the little stippling, the dots feels nice on the hand, but they also feel like they're pretty cheap, thin, and would not survive a drop. If this landed onto a desk on the rear buttons, these things would probably snap in half. Also, they sound freakishly cheap when you actuate them. Hollow, tinny. So if these had better plastics or maybe some rubberized coating, there was a little hair floating here that was distracting, and had 2 more at the bottom, this would be a perfect rear button suite, but with the lack of those, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 6 out of 10. Repeat, a 6 out of 10. New segment of the video, because I make good on my promises. This is the rumper took us to this controller in ReWaz, which as you can see is not labeled with buttons, which unfortunately means you cannot bind Windows specific functionality like spacebar and alt to these suckers, which is not surprising considering the way that the mechanism actually swaps between the bindings on the fly by using the command slider. I didn't really think that this would have any software support. Palm trees, scantily clad ladies, and outrageous cost of living, welcome to LA. Gamepad LA, that is. Rotating that thumbstick in a circle, you are going to see a 250 hertz polling rate, which is going to get you around 4 milliseconds of input lag or delay. I think I said in a previous video just recently that if it goes over 100% in the stability, that's bad. It's actually not. It's kind of common in Gamepad LA. I'm just learning the ropes with this program. But a block I've been on, in fact, a street corner I used to work on, is X input test, which is by far my favorite means of measuring input lag or delay. In case you're curious why that is, video linked in the description below. Let's move this thumbstick in a circle, twist that bitch in a twist. What the it just stopped my... That was weird. Okay, well, let's run it again, shall we? From the top. It kind of froze up on the last test, which I have never encountered, but what I do like to see is a very consistent spread here. We're not getting our cheek spread here because, as you can see, these are all around 4 milliseconds of input lag or delay. We did have a couple of outliers. Let's run another one, see if we can get a cleaner test. She's been tested and it was inconclusive. She wasn't necessarily clean, so we're going to run it again. Oh, also pretty shitty. 6 outliers. But again, you can see here, 3.9. That's the 4 millisecond mark on a 250 hertz stock clock. I'll run one more just to do my due diligence. I'm on the clock right now. Boss is over my shoulder. If I don't run a third test, he will not be paying overtime and he will slap me around. So same and same. As for overclocking, when strapping this bad boy to the dyno jet and doing a couple of back-to-back pulls to see if the turbocharger overheated, I did find that this is polling rate locked, not surprising because it's a licensed Xbox controller, and they're always PCB or printed circuit board locked. Suck a cock. As for adapter or converter support, you can use this bad boy on the PS5 to navigate the menus and play PS4 games. You will get that little pop-up message saying, hey buddy, use yourself a DualSense controller. You can get around that limitation by using yourself a Cronus or Beloader, or the Beloader Behavior controller, which has the Beloader adapter on board. This will also work on Nintendo Switch with the NS2 adapter. All of these Brook Accessories adapters are linked in the description below and go for around $40 on Amazon. So as for the pros, cons, and verdict, we'll start with the cons, shortcomings, or limitations. I'm rapidly trying to comprehend why this is already on sale for $60, not its original MSRP of $80. Let's see what's going down in the town. We're going to ignore these positive ratings because we don't want to hear nice things about this controller. We want to hear about the problems. Maybe the 4 stars will have some complaints. Devin, which sounds like my name, Kevin, this controller has a dead zone programmed into it and there's no app to change it. No need to change anything because there is no dead zone programmed into it. We've inspected her in Gamepad Tester. Oh, but here he specifies why these dead zones matter to him. He is a competitive player. If you scour Reddit or negative reviews for controllers on the internet, everybody is a competitive player. I myself was in the Tomahawk Knuckle Duster 3000 Platinum Gold Predator Turd division, which was for the top tier elite specimens of esports for sure. In fact, I shouldn't even be match made with normal mortals. Little silliness there, a little satire for you. Damn, but we got 3 1-stars over here. These are all in Sprechen Sie Wagendy, damn it.
Well, I'm glad we're Sprechen Sie the same lingity.
Looks like other than a really smashed thumbnail, we've got a little bit of cosmetic scrapes back here. Ah, shit, that's a good photo. I might use it for my thumbnail. Translate to English. Do it.
Johnny Red Neat, okay? Do it. Do it.
Well, the future is now, old man. I was able to translate all these with the click of a button. That's the day and age that we live in. Normal game use, the right trigger suddenly hangs and does not respond. After looking closely into the gapper, I see that one side of the upper hinge where the button is suspended broken off. At first, I was surprised this controller had so few reviews. In fact, he is really good. The controller has been assigned a gender. Unfortunately, I had to notice a controller arrived dirty, scratched, and the B left trigger active trigger stop click much harder than the right one. Either I just glitched out or something's going on here. It's probably because these have been translated. After a short time, it was triggered irregularly. I'm triggered reading this thing. When I reported the problem to Amazon, despite the warranty, the only option was to pack and return the item myself. You mean they wanted you to pack up the faulty unit and return it for a new one? Those crazy sons of guns. The manufacturer also apparently forbidden to contact Amazon customers. So the controller returned itself and I went to M-Market, which also has the controller, and you can exchange it. Here, my trigger was also blown out, so he exchanged it and got a second railed out trigger out of the box, but warranty in place for him. Starts like a Bible verse. On the second day, the controller irregularly loses connection to the console. The reason? Wobbly contact on the USB-C port, therefore completely unusable for playing. Returns go. Too bad. I'm gonna make a t-shirt out of that. Returns go. Too bad. So if it's just a bad USB-C cable, that's frustrating, but you just use your own USB-C cable. But if it's the actual USB-C port, then yes, the controller's faulty. But again, 5-year warranty on this bad boy. But what's not getting 5 is the amount of stars on the Amazon reviews. So that was the con section, because I don't really have any cons of my own. It's just a good little budget gamepad. If you want a second gamepad or you're on a budget and you just want a pro controller with additional features that your stock Xbox controller does not have, like trigger stops, rear buttons, grippy thumbsticks, anti-friction rings, and it looks pretty interesting as well. I use the word interesting. He's a character. You might love it or you might hate it. I'm a little bit indifferent, but more on the side of I think it's too gaudy and too much going on. The pros, my personal things that I like about it, the slider in the back, the command slider for binding the rear buttons. It's simple, it's fast, you can easily see what they're bound to. The rear buttons feel good. I just wish there were 2 more of them and they didn't sound like this. Trigger stops. They do what they should. They stop the majority of the trigger pull. Sounds like common sense, but so many trigger stops are utterly useless, like the PowerA Fusion 1 and 2. The 3, a little bit of an improvement, but the 1 and 2, same thing with the DualSense Edge. A lot of excess take up on that. Magnetic Hall Effect thumbstick modules that perform good in Gamepad Tester, felt good in gameplay, and you have a 5-year warranty on this controller. And it costs $80, but really $60 on Amazon right now. Pretty damn good. If you do not mind being wired, the SnakeByte, love it, hate it, like it, leave it, don't give a shit. It is in the description below. Drop in the comment section below what you think of this gamepad and what you're using to play on your console of choice, and I will see you stallions and stallionettes tomorrow. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers, so this information will reach and assist them as well. Much like the back of the TV, I've got plugs for all of my socials down there in the description below. And your wallet will greatly thank you if you check the description, because there are exclusive discounts on a ton of products, including controllers, KontrolFreeks, keyboards, mouse pads, clothes, and energy drinks. And keep in mind that you, the viewer, keep this channel running. The more stallions and stallionettes trotting around the stable, the better, so mollywop that subscribe button like it owes you money, and we'll have the same amount of fun tomorrow.